Hey guys, welcome back to my videos on onlinegunsafetyclass.com. Today we're going to talk about a topic an article that got sent to me by a few of my viewers. And I want to talk about it real quick because if you've ever been to one of my live classes, I talk about this because it's important. The article, which was in USA Today by Tom McLaughlin, the title of it is "Despite Startling Racial Statistics, Controversial Stand Your Ground Laws Withstand Scrutiny." And the byline says, 10 years after George Zimmerman fatally shot 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in Florida, controversial laws like Stand Your Ground remain intact. So let's talk about the Florida, which would have applied here, Stand Your Ground law, and what it means. And Stand Your Ground is not just, despite what the media wants you to believe, is not just you saying, I stood my ground, I defended myself, let me go. There are criteria that must be met in order to stand your ground. The first criteria for stand your ground is that you legally had the right to use self-defense deadly force. So you are already in fear of death or great bodily harm. That does not mean you are scared. It does not mean you're spooked. It does not mean that you're walking through the parking lot and you're afraid of things that go bump in the night. You have to articulate that you have the fear of death or great bodily harm. So if you're already in fear of death or great bodily harm, you have the right to defend yourself. All Stand Your Ground does is it says that if you are in fear of death or great bodily harm to yourself or another, you don't have to retreat. Before 2005, if somebody threatened you with death or great bodily harm, you had a duty to run away before you could use force. Now, let's think about that for a moment. Someone comes up to you with a gun, and they're threatening to kill you if you don't give them your wallet, your car, or whatever it is that they want. Under the law, prior to 2005, that means you would have to try to run away from the person with a gun already committing a crime before you could defend yourself. And we know what could happen there. If you're running away, the person's not getting what they want, very easily they could shoot you in the back. So, in 2005, when Stand Your Ground came in Florida, it removed that duty to retreat to say that if someone comes up and is a threat to death or great bodily harm, you can meet that threat without retreating. You also can't be committing a crime and then later try to claim that it was Stand Your Ground. If you were in the process of committing a crime, then you do have a duty to retreat. Laws are not designed to protect criminals, nor should they be. And third, in order to use Stand Your Ground in Florida, you have to legally have a right to be where you are with whatever weapon you use deadly force, whether it's a gun, a knife, or whatever. So you have to be in fear of death or great bodily harm. You have to not be committing a crime, and you have to be where you're legally allowed to be. This is a defense. This is not an offensive statute that says that you can go out and kill people. In Florida, they are trying to, in 2021 and again this year, Florida State Senator Shevrin Jones of Miami introduced legislation called the Self-Defense Restoration Act, which would effectively repeal Stand Your Ground and would restore the duty to retreat. Well, how dishonest is that? To call it the Self-Defense Restoration Act, which to anyone who sees that, oh yeah, we want to be able to have self-defense. Let's restore self-defense. But really, it actually takes away a level of defense that you have. Also, it's funny because I knew this before I read the article. Towards the very end of the article, it says, after several months and much media scrutiny, Zimmerman was charged with second-degree murder. Zimmerman's lawyers did not use a Stand Your Ground defense, opting instead to argue self-defense. Okay, so here we are talking about the Trayvon Martin case and Stand Your Ground laws when it never applied. It was never used in the trial because it did not apply. They knew that, they used the self-defense standards, and they still got an acquittal. They mention in here, and this is a quote, that says you could theoretically feel like you were threatened by anyone. If I'm walking and some guy pops around the corner and surprises me, it could startle me enough that I'd feel threatened and understand your ground, I could shoot him, even though he was just walking to. And that is just simply not true. Again, you have to have a fear of death or great bodily harm. You cannot just say, I was startled by something. And the fear of death or great bodily harm is on a case-by-case basis. Now, I'm a bigger man. If a 5'2", 110-pound woman came up to me with no weapons in her hands and said she hated me and she wanted me to die and started punching me in the chest, I don't believe that anybody watching this video would think for a moment that it's okay for me to use deadly force. I am clearly not in fear of death or great bodily harm from this 5'2", 110-pound woman. On the flip side, if I, a larger man, went up to a 5'2", 110-pound woman and said, I'm going to kill you, and started punching her in the face, I think we could agree that there is a legitimate fear of death or great bodily harm, and she could use deadly force against me. And she doesn't have to retreat in order to do it. In all my live classes, I talk about this because I want you to be able to explain to people why Florida's Stand Your Ground law is not a license to kill. Thank you for watching this video. This has been Scott with OnlineGunSafetyClass.com.
If you like my dad, like and subscribe.